You may have heard the famous phrase, surprised by joy. Well, I was surprised by rage. I didn't know I still had it in me, but it turns out I do. Almost 2 weeks ago now, my wife was out on her morning run up on our street up above Castle Creek, Country Road. I was walking on a different part of that road. She was bitten by a dog. Now, one of our neighbors has not been good about controlling his dog. This dog has gotten out several times over the past few weeks, and each time it got out, it was getting a little bit more and more aggressive, and things were escalating. And then a couple of weeks ago, it actually bit Paula, and it broke the skin, and it drew blood. When she told me about it, I was enraged. Not angry, I was enraged. She is not a big person, and this is a big dog. The dog was running loose. No one could seem to catch it. I wanted to get a rock, and I wanted to kill that dog. And I then wanted to go and pick a fight with its owner. Now, I was shocked at the visceral nature of my rage. It was like an outside power grabbing me by the throat. And I know that anger serves a function in human behavior. It comes from our evolutionary history and has to do with survival. But I was shocked by how much this rage gripped me. I felt out of control. And then later in the day, it made me think of those stories about Jesus casting demons out of people. Stories like the one we just heard from Luke's gospel. Whatever you think of the historical nature of these narratives, they certainly have symbolic power. We all have our demons, at least psychological ones. Well, as the day went on, Paula decided to forgive the dog and its owner. The man later in the day came over to our house. I wasn't there, fortunately, and he apologized. Paula said it was a deep and heartfelt apology. The man accepted full responsibility. And he also told Paula if she chose to have animal control come and take the dog away, the owner would understand. But Paula knows that his kids love this dog, and the family is kind of facing some troubles right now, and Paula didn't want to take it any further. She did at least find out that the dog's rabies shots are completely up to date. So she decided to let it go, which is what the word forgive means. When she did that, and when she told me about it, it was like my demon was kicked out. The rage left. Her compassion and her forgiveness had the power to cast my demon out. Kind of like that story of Jesus. Now listen, this is just a very, very small example, not a really big deal, but listen to a much more powerful story along these lines. The story is told by a clinical psychologist named Jack Cornfield. There was a 14-year-old boy in a city who wanted to join a street gang, but he had to prove himself. So he shot and killed an innocent teenager. He was caught, and he had to stand trial. He was convicted of this killing. The mother of the victim attended the entire trial. After the verdict was announced, she stood up, and she stared at her son's killer, and she said, "I'm going to kill you." Well, the convicted 14-year-old then started his sentence in juvenile prison. 6 months went by, and the mother of the victim went to visit her son's killer. He was serving a 3-year sentence. Before the killing, he'd been living on the streets, no family, no connections. She was the only one who ever visited him in jail. They talked. As she left, she gave some money for him to buy cigarettes. Well, step by step, she started to visit him regularly. She would bring food or small gifts. And then as his release date drew near, she asked him what he was going to do when he got out. He seemed a little confused and uncertain about what to tell her. She offered to set him up with a job at a company owned by a friend of hers. And then she asked where he would live. Well, he had nowhere to go, no family. So she offered to let him stay for a while in a spare room at her house. He lived there for 8 months. He ate her food. He worked at this job she had found for him. And then, one night, she called him into the living room. She sat down and she looked at him. And then this is what she said. Do you remember in court when I said I was going to kill you? He said, I sure do. I will never forget that. She said, I did not want the boy who killed my son for no reason to remain alive on this earth. I wanted him to die. And that's why I started visiting you and bringing you things. It's why I got you the job and let you live here in my house. That's how I set about changing you. And that old boy, the one that killed my son, he's gone now. So I want to ask you, since my son is gone, and since that killer is gone, I want to ask you if you'll stay here. I've got room. And if you let me, I would like to adopt you. And she became the mother that kid never had. Seems to me that demons were cast out of that woman and that young man. It's the power of compassion. And it's the power of forgiveness. And personally, I think it's the power of Jesus.